Okay, let's get our character bound to our skeleton so we can start painting weights. All right, so we're going to click on the root joint of our skeleton and we'll shift select our model so that they are all selected. And then we're going to go up to skin, bind skin into the option box. And we're just going to use just basically the default joint hierarchy, closest distance, classic linear, um, interactive for the normalized weights, 5 for max influences, um, allowing multiple bind poses doesn't really matter. We'll leave that on. Everything else is fine. So we will click apply and close. And now you can see that my skeleton is all colored beautifully and wonderfully. So exciting. And that just tells you that, hey, everything is being bound. So if we grab a joint, we can kind of see what everything is going on and happening. So it's not great, but now we get a pretty good idea of how our character is bending and moving. So, which is pretty fun. But there's a lot of cleanup that we need to do. So, we are going to work just like I had stated. We're going to clean things up generally, get our weights painted, and then we're going to get more specific as we get further into the weight paints. So, what we're going to do first is you'll notice when I was moving the leg around that it is moving some verts on the right side, which is definitely not what we want. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to select our character and we're just going to clean up general uh, of our weights and the general influences. So a lot of times I like to come in and I'll hit F9 to get to our vert selection. And we'll basically just go in and select everything right up to the midpoint. We could actually go into our front orthographic view to make sure we're doing a little bit better with getting a good selection like that. Okay, and then we're going to open up our component editor. So again, that is underneath Windows, General Editors, and the component editor. I have a hotkey set up for this that I like to use, Control-Alt-P. You can use whatever you want or just find it here in the menu. So this will pull up this window. Okay, and we can see here all these verts and all the joints that they're being influenced by. So what I like to do is I like to go through is everything here that we've selected is on the right side, which means there should be no influence from the left side of these verts. So anything that has an L underscore, I want to clear out. So I will go through. So I have the left ankle. Again, I'll just click that top button. That selects everything. We don't want to change anything on this hold. So that just basically creates a lock on those verts or on that joint. So you couldn't change the influence of anything. So we will just click this button and then we're going to hit Control and click that off so that we're not affecting that. And we're going to hit 0 and enter and it gets rid of that. We're going to do the same thing with the left ball and the left brow inner joint, left brow mid joint, left clavicle, left eye, all of those things. So we will select left brow inner, control the off selection, hit 0 and enter. And now you can see as we're doing these columns are disappearing, meaning that that joint doesn't have any influence, so we're not showing it here. If you wanted to see every single joint that it could be, that these verts could be influenced by, you could go under your options and uncheck the hide 0 columns, and it would put everything that is a part of this bind pose in this skin cluster would then show. So if I click that, it would go through and it would just list basically every single joint. But we don't need that. We're going to use the hide 0 columns just because it keeps things cleaner. We're going to keep going. We got to get rid of the left brow mid joint and the left clavicle and the left eye joint and the left eyelid low. Go. Zero that out. Our left hip. Zero that out. Left knee. Left toe. And that looks like we have got that cleaned up. So this is really good for just really quickly setting things and just really quickly getting to the point to where these aren't having influence. We know we don't want any influence on these things right away. So it's really easy to clear these out and just generally get stuff a little bit cleaner. So if I close that and I go back to object mode, I can select a joint and rotate it. Now you can see there's no influence that's happening on that right leg, which is great. And that'll be like that all the way down. So that is step one. Okay. Now we're going to go in and we're going to start cleaning things up a little bit more. So with that, we'll just start at the bottom. So one of the things that we did was we created all these end joints here. These end joints have influence on our mesh, but we don't want that influence there. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to select these tips here. And if we select the tip and we shift select the mesh, we can actually go up under our skin menu and we can come down and there is a edit influences and remove influence. So that's going to take that joint out altogether of that skin cluster node. So it will no longer be affecting this mesh at all. So if I click remove influence and I went back and I moved that around, now all of a sudden it doesn't have any influence. In fact, at this point, if I wanted to add influence to that, I couldn't. I would have to add it back in. So we're going to do that for each of these. So we click the joint, shift select the mesh. It doesn't matter the order for this one. It just needs a skin cluster and a joint. And we'll go to skin, edit influences, remove influence. And now that we've done that a few times and showed you that, we can just quickly select the joint, the next joint, and shift select our mesh and just hit G. And the G key will repeat our last command. So we can see right here, it's done. So this has influence. We'll select the joint, shift select the mesh, hit G, and we're going to do that for all these tips. We're going to do it for the toes. And we're going to come up and we're going to do it on the right side of joints as well for all the fingertips. Okay. It's just one less joint to really worry about when we're going through and we're painting our weights. So just make our lives as easy as possible. Okay. We're not going to worry about the hair and the eyebrows for right now. They're a separate model. So we are just going to turn these off. So our outliner, we can just click in Our visibility, change it to 0. Okay, and we don't need to worry about that right now. They'll just mostly be getting in our way. Okay, so now that we've removed those influences, we can go ahead and start focusing a bit more on um, the other general cleanup that we can do right off. So what we can do is we can go back into our vert mode and select verts here. And we can kind of work our way up. Okay, so if I select a few, and if you hit Shift and your period key, it will grow the selection that we have. And if you hit the Shift and then you hit the comma key, like those little caret brackets, it will shrink your selection. Okay, so we're generally going to do this right about here. And then we're going to bring up our component editor again. So we're going to go into our Windows, General Editors, and Component Editor. And we're going to take a look at everything that these verts are being affected by. So right now it says it has the right ball, the right ankle, the left knee, the left ball, and the left ankle. So the left ball is this joint, left ankle is here. Obviously, we don't need anything on the right side, so we can do the same thing and clean up this by selecting the column, control selecting this hold, so we're not putting a value in that. And then the other thing is, like, maybe some of these verts might be influenced by the ankle for the bend, but they definitely shouldn't be influenced by the knee. So now we're going to go in and we're just going to turn off all influence on the knee. Okay. And then, because this shoe is totally separate, we can basically select this whole knee. So hitting Shift and period to grow our selection, and just hit it a whole bunch of times. And it's going to select that whole shoe. This whole thing really is only going to be influenced by the ankle and the ball on our left side. So we don't need the right knee, we don't need the right ball, the right ankle, we don't need the left knee. We're going to select all of those. You hit Control and it will just add to that selection in here, and then deselect the hold option and just hit 0 for all of these. And now there's going to be no influence on that knee. Okay, the same can't be said of the pants. Okay, the pants, we're going to get influence a little bit from the knee in this area. So we're going to be aware of that, but we won't be getting influence from like the ball up on these pants. So if we hit F10 and we go to our edge loop, it's real easy to just double click on an edge, and that will give you a nice loop. And then we can grow our selection the same way by hitting Shift period. And we're just going to grow this, yeah, maybe up about here. Maybe we'll Control. Subtract from your selection, so maybe like this. And if we hit Control F9, that is going to convert those edge loops into vertices for us. So now with the vertices selected, we can clean up these really easily. So we can go in, and again here we are looking at this, probably not having any influence on the ball. Okay, so probably just the ankle and the knee at this point. So again, we're just generally cleaning things up, right? Getting it to just be affected by the few joints that these verts really should be. So we're gonna select our right knee, our right ankle, our left ball and hit 0 on these. And now it's just going to be influenced by this. Okay. Now we can continue growing our selection up the knee like that. And we can say kind of the same thing. If we want, we can say, we'll hold Control and just drag a selection over these verts because we've already kind of messed with them. And everything basically from here down should almost 100% be influenced by the knee only. So instead of zeroing everything else out, because there's a lot of influence coming from a lot of other joints, we're going to go in and actually say, let's just give this all the influence, 100%. So we're going to go in, we're going to find our left knee and just select that. Control click the hold there. And instead of typing 0, we're going to type 1 and we're going to hit enter. So what this has done is you can see it has pulled 100% or 1, a whole number, over to just that left knee. And it's just eliminated the influence from every other joint that there is. So the grand total should always be 1. Okay, all the influences add up to 1 in this total column. Okay, if we don't do that, then they're going to be out of normalization. Right now, this auto normalization is happening and it's interactive. So when we change a value, it's going to shift the values of the other influences so that our total always equals 1. And that is what we want. Okay, they should always equal 1. All right, with that selected, we can now go up to kind of our next little section in the leg. And we can say, all right, these verts are going to be influenced by our left hip and our left knee, but nothing else, right? Nothing on the ankle, nothing on the other leg, nothing in the pelvis, nothing there. So we are going to select our right knee, our right hip, and then our left ankle, and then just control clicking these off and typing 0. And now we have just influence on the left hip and the left knee. And basically we can do the same thing we did with the knee for all of these verts. So we can quickly select these. We'll control to deselect those verts. And now we can say, hey, all of these are going to be basically 100% on that left hip. So we're going to go to our left hip and just click on that and control click the hold, and we're going to type 1, and that's going to clear everything out. And that kind of cleans up everything there. Okay, now we're getting more into this area here, the pelvis. Okay, there's going to be a lot of influence on all of this. Even get a nice clean selection going around here. Okay, so this is going to have influence from several joints. Obviously, the root, we could even have a tiny bit of influence on the lower back. Both the hips are going to be influenced, but nothing on the knees, nothing above the lower back should be influencing these verts at all. So we're going to clear those out. So left hip is fine. Lower back we're going to say is okay, but the mid back, not so much. Pelvis is fine. The right hip is fine. The root is fine. So really we're just taking out one of these. Type 0 and enter, and we'll get rid of that. Okay. And then we're just going to keep working our way up the body like this. Okay, at this point, there shouldn't be any influence on any of the hips. Okay, none of the hips, probably nothing on the pelvis either. Okay, but we will probably get stuff, the root, joint, and even some of these verts will be influenced probably by that mid back, but nothing above the mid back. So we don't want anything on the hips, left hip, and the right hip. Nothing on the pelvis. Lower back, mid back, and root joint are all fine. And that's it. And we're just going to type 0. Okay. And then we're just going to move up to the next section here. So here, it's basically going to be a combo of these 3 joints. Probably nothing on the root joint. And deselect the pocket. And these. Okay, it's not so important that you're getting every single vert right now. This is just a general pass to clean up everything. So we just want to do it really quickly just to get us in the ballpark. Okay, so left clavicle, right clavicle, not so much. Left shoulder, definitely not. And lower back, probably mid back. Right clavicle, no. Right shoulder, no. Root joint, no. And the upper back is fine. So with all those columns selected, we're going to hit 0. That's going to 0 all of those out. And we're going to keep moving up here. So other than getting too much into that, we will kind of do the same thing with like our arm that we did with the leg. Okay. So we can tell right away that basically these verts right from here to here are going to be 100% on our left shoulder right here. So we will select our left shoulder in the component editor, control click the hold option and type 0 and enter to clean that. Oh, whoops, I did that backwards. Undo that. One of the weird things with the component editor is when you undo it, it doesn't actually update it so much in the actual component editor. You would actually have to click a different tab and come back to it, and then you would see that come back in. We want to do the opposite. We don't want to 0 this out. We want to put 100%. So we're going to type 1 on the left shoulder. That's going to give us that influence. And then these joints here to here, they're going to be affected by the left shoulder, the left elbow, and the left forearm twist generally. So everything else we don't want any influence on. So nothing on the left clavicle. There's our forearm joint. That is fine. Our left shoulder joint is fine, but the thumb is not cool, and not the wrist, and not the upper back. So with all those selected, we're going to 0 those out and move down the line. So do the same thing and just kind of select these. Okay. This, we're not going to have any influence from the wrist. It's all either going to be this forearm or the elbow. So there's our left forearm, there's our left elbow. There shouldn't be anything this far down affected by the shoulder. So nothing from the thumb, nothing from our wrist end joint, nothing from our wrist. And that zeroed that out. Okay. All right. With the watch, we can do the same thing. We can actually double click on any vert, and that will select everything that's a part of that object. And we can shift select the watch band as well. And this we can say it's going to be 100% influenced by this twist, the forearm twist. So we'll go to our forearm joint and type 1, and clear that out, and we are good to go. Okay. All right. At this point, from here down, we really shouldn't be seeing anything from our elbow and above. So we're gonna start seeing a lot of joints in here because it's got all of our finger joints. So we've got to go through and just be looking carefully for anything that doesn't belong, and we want to knock that out. So this left wrist end joint keeps showing up, and that's because I forgot to. You guys haven't done anything yet. Okay, I got to take this wrist end joint. I don't need it a part of this. I'll shift select that, and then I'll go up to my skin and edit influences and remove that influence. So now we won't have to deal with that. I need to do the same thing on the right side, as I forgot it on that side too. So we'll shift select both of those and hit G, and that will remove that influence from our character. Okay. Now, quickly what we can do is we can go to the end of our fingers, and we can go in and just go back into vert mode, and we can select a joint at the tip, and we can just hold shift and just keep clicking that period key to grow the selection all the way out to something like this, where we know 100% like, hey, these shouldn't be affected by anything other than something called thumb. Okay, so the wrist, not so much. And then nothing on the pointer. We're going to turn those to 0. Okay, so just this left thumb. Okay, and we can do the same type of thing with our pointer finger. We'll just go up probably just as far as here. And if it doesn't say pointer, it shouldn't be on there. So middle, no, no, and no. And then we have pointer, 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 and that's it. So we can zero out all the middle joints. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to click on Avert, grow the selection all the way back to about here. And we're going to say if it's not that middle finger, then we don't want it. So pointer finger, pointer, pointer. We're going to see the ring finger getting in here too. We don't want any of that. And we're just control clicking to deselect that hold and hit 0. And there we go. We're just on the middle. We're going to do the same thing on a ring finger. Back to about here. And we're going to be looking, so nothing from the middle and nothing from the pinky. Should just be on that ring finger. So with that, we're going to zero that out. Okay, and then last, our pinky finger, we'll grow that selection out to about here. And at this point, here's our pinky. We don't want the ring finger on there and not the wrist. We'll zero it out. Okay. So with that, we are going to click on our model. We're going to mirror our weights so that everything we did on the left side comes over to the right side. So we're going to go up to our skin, and we want to mirror the skin weights. We're going to click on the option box, and we're just going to make sure that it's going to mirror across the YZ plane. And we're going to mirror from positive to negative. Okay, and that's what this is showing us. Closest point on surface is fine. Influence association closest joint. Okay, and then we're going to click mirror. and that should mirror it. So this gets us generally really pretty close in what we're looking for. There's some further cleanup that we'll do with everything, but this gets us a general good feel for everything. So it's not perfect, but it's not being influenced by crazy different things, right? See, we're getting a little bit of wiggle all the way up here. So we missed those verts, but we will catch them. Okay, we will keep going with this and start painting weights in our next video.